Now we thought we'd talk about the skis. Here we go. This ski here is a wooden ski. This could have been anything from 1700s literally up to the modern day. In fact, what I find quite terrifying is that my co-director Paul was skiing on a ski very similar to this in about 1997, issued to him by the Royal Marines. Quite scary and well done, Royal. What you'll notice about this particular ski are the edges, or rather lack of them. You'll notice that there is no edge at all on this ski, and in fact if you wanted to sharpen your edge you'd need a file and sandpaper because there's no steel edge at all on that. For me, probably the most scary piece of this entire ski is the binding. So this leather strap here would go around the back of the boot. That would force the boot hard into the front of this steel plate that's here. And these bindings would release predominantly at the knee. We're used to DIN settings on modern skis, which I'll show you in a minute, not on this. The release pressure here is governed by the strength of your AC cruciate ligament. Actually pretty scary. The other thing you'll be aware is you can see there's no rear binding, those of you that ski normally, and that's because there isn't one. So what would happen is, okay, on the way up, you could tour because the boot would flex and allow you to walk, but actually on the way down you had no way of fixing the heel into the ski, so you were effectively telemark skiing all of the time. Pretty hard work. Now, what we've got here is my current modern atomic ski. The first thing you'll probably notice is that the shape actually is not hugely dissimilar to the other ski. A couple of things that are really interesting. Believe it or not, this ski still contains quite a lot of wood. So the core on this ski is actually still wood, and that's because the flexibility, the bounce, if you like, of the wooden core gives the ski some feel on the slopes when you're trying to ski it, particularly if you've got those nice turns on. For what we're actually doing now, again, it's a bit of a compromise. My background really is alpine sort of high performance piste skiing. So I've gone for a ski arguably a little bit heavier than true backcountry ski, but it gives me better performance when I'm skiing on piste, or if I'm skiing hard with a ski, than perhaps a pure backcountry ski would. The upside to that, that's the benefit rather, the downside to that is it is much heavier than a pure backland ski would be. Point to note really as well, if you look at the edges, we've now got a proper steel edge on that ski, so I can sharpen that to a razor point, so should it be icy, I can get grip on that particular ski. And as we were just discussing, the revolutionary part really of this is the binding. So again, it's all about compromise. Some ski mountaineers will use a technical pin binding. I'm not going to go into that right now. I've chosen a more kind of alpine friendly setup. That's just me, and I'm prepared to pay the weight price for that. So this binding here looks more conventional. We've got the pressure settings front and back, which means that the binding will now release comfortably on the ski, provided they're set up properly by somebody that knows what they're doing. In fact, in modern skiing, instances now of broken legs, he says, touching wood, are far less frequent than they used to be, and that is down to the effectiveness of modern bindings. These bindings are pretty smart. These are my tracker bindings. I click a switch at the back and then the whole binding will lift and fall. That then enables me to walk up the mountain using my ski, not unlike the traditional ski I showed you a moment ago. Then when I want to come down again, I lock the ski back in at the back and it effectively becomes a standard alpine binding. I lock my walk mode in on my boot. I've got a 130 flex boot, a locked binding, and I'm back to having a reasonably high performance ski that I can carve turns out of or ski in the powder if that's what I want to do. So every setup is a bit of a compromise, but that's the compromise we've chosen to make in terms of using this particular piece of kit. Just before I finish talking about skis, let's have a look at the poles. How can the poles be that different, I hear you ask? Well, take a look at this. This is fundamentally a piece of wood with a very sharp point on the end of it and a basket. And those of you that probably ski every day nowadays will talk about baskets on your skis, and they were quite literally baskets woven through the big hoop to help you go along. So here's my modern binding. The shape, not so different, the purpose pretty much identical. You'll just notice now we've still got a basket, only this one is made of plastic and I can take it off for a smaller one if I'm doing more piste oriented skiing. And in fact, this one's made of carbon fibre, so it weighs almost nothing. You'll also notice that the grip is now rubber, much more comfortable, arguably warmer, I'm not convinced. And then in fact the grip comes all the way down the shaft, or much further down the shaft, which enables me to change my hand position on it for climbing up steeper hills. So that's the pole.